So as I bring my awareness inward, I acknowledge this life, the one life that's being created in every moment. It is the seen and the unseen, the unformed brought into being so that I may experience this life and this presence that is living in, as, and through me now. I call this presence, life, God. It has all many names. And because it is all there is, I am made of it. It is living in, as, and through me. And that it is in all that is created. There is no separation from me to all there is, all people, all things, all experience, for it is all God. And in it, it knows only the state of being love, of being goodness, of giving. It is peace. It is connection and oneness. And so in this, in my beingness, I am its and it is mine. As it is living in me and through me, I feel it in all of my senses. It fills my heart with a love that is unending. And so as I speak my word, I know this truth, that I enter each moment fully imbued with this love, this life, the unending and unlimited possibilities of all that may be created, all that may be experienced. And that each moment that I enter is a sacred moment. It is that communion with my God and that one that is all things. And for this I am so grateful, knowing that it is living in and through all. That all of its power, all of its love, all of its support, all of its becoming, and all of its possibilities are blessed for me and for all. It is alive. It is now. And as I enter this new beginning, this new year, I know all is well, that all of the good is rushing to meet me, for it is my divine right and the divine right of all. And so I take this blessing and open to receive all that it is. And I give thanks for the joy and the peace, the wholeness, the health, and the abundance that I experience and that all are given. And so I release this into that light and that love of spirit that makes it so. And I declare this as I say, and so it is.
So it is. Our talk today is a wholeness resolution. We've been looking all month at the idea of living as wholeness. And today is our final talking the whole year-long series of living very quietly and little small, playing small. No, I'm sorry. Living out loud. That's been our theme this year, living out loud. Yes? How many of you have lived out loud today or this year? A little more so than maybe before. Yes. So this is the end of the calendar year by our calendar. You know, there's other cultures that the end of the calendar year was back in the beginning of fall. There's others that will begin their new calendar year in the spring. It's just a time that we have set aside and designated as this is what it is, you know, for us. I mean, today from the perspective and tomorrow from the perspective of the universe is just another day. Yes? Yep. It doesn't have a calendar. I love my friend Michael Beckwith says that tomorrow is just more of God's today. But we appreciate marking beginnings and endings, knowing that and recognizing that we need both as aspects of life, as markers, as places of consciousness to let ourselves be. And as we begin anew, we tend to reflect on the past period, and we tend to set resolutions or set intentions for the new period, which is a healthy way to grow consciously, yes? It's a time to step back and reflect. Instead of just charging forward, doing whatever we do, it's a time to take a breath and say, where have I been? Where do I want to go? And that's all that this time is about for us. So our talk today invites us to make a resolution to live in greater wholeness. And our youth have been working on this subject all month long. And they're here, they're sort of here. Ocean, representing our youth. And Adrian? No, not Adrian. Okay. Ocean, representing our youth, is here to share what they've been working with living in greater wholeness.
All right, hello. My name is Ocean. If you don't know, I am the teen advisor here at Olympia. And in fact, I'll be going to teen camp this winter.
Yay.
But more on topic. I have a story, a true story, about the kind of energetic blessing that we can strive for during this coming year in 2024. In 2005, off the coast of San Francisco, there was a female humpback whale who had become entangled in a web of crab lines and traps. The 50-foot whale was weighed down by hundreds of pounds of traps that caused her to struggle to stay afloat. She also had hundreds of yards of rope wrapped around her tail and torso and a line tugging in her mouth. A fisherman spotted her and radioed an environmental group for help. Within a few hours, the rescue team arrived and determined that she was so bad off, the only way to save her was to dive in and untangle her, which was a very dangerous proposition. One slap of the tail could kill a rescuer. They worked for hours with curved knives and eventually freed her. When she was free, the divers say she swam in what seemed like joyous circles. She then came back to each and every diver, one at a time, and nudged them, pushed them gently around, thanking them. Some said it was the most incredibly beautiful experience of their lives. The guy who cut the rope out of her mouth says her eye was following him the whole time, and he will never be the same. May you and all those you love be so blessed and fortunate during this next year. May you be surrounded by people who will help you get untangled from the things that are binding you. And may you always know the joy of giving and receiving gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. I love that story. We're invited to live in greater wholeness, but the truth is we can't. We can't live in greater wholeness. Sorry. Because we're already living completely in wholeness, in an infinite wholeness. We're already and always living in an as wholeness. But we can become more awake and more aware that we are living that way, that we are living in this wholeness, the wholeness of life all around us, and then let this wholeness, let this awareness infuse our daily lives, which thereby affects everybody and everything around us. Jane Goodall said, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. That's our invitation, is to decide what kind of a difference you want to make. Do you want to come from wholeness, or do you want to come from separation? Often we get overwhelmed by situations either in our personal lives or out in the world. Anybody besides me? Yeah. And when we do, we can get rigid, we can get tense and protective. Our vision shrinks into a smaller, lower view. In order to expand, we need to develop a greater flexibility, a greater ability to flex, a greater resilience to flow with life, to see and experience the greater wholeness that's always there. I'm going to talk a little bit about resilience, and I had to laugh because this morning I opened up my Richard Rohr meditations, and they've decided that this year's theme for 2024 is radical resilience. And I opened my Costco connection a couple days ago, and they had an article on resilience. So apparently the one mind wants us, and I wrote this talk, by the way, before I read all that. Apparently the one mind has an idea and a theme that it wants us to focus on this year. So, resilience. And resilience is something we can increase over time. Just like stretching our muscles increases our flexibility. You know, when I was training as an athlete, I learned that the hard days, the workout days, were days that the muscles would kind of tear and break down as you push them and push them. And the rest days were the days that the muscles would then rebuild and become stronger than before. We all have had experiences that seem to tear us apart, yes? We've had heartbreaks, we've had disappointments, we've had setbacks, we've had frustrations of all kinds. And we can hunker down into a protective mode, vowing to never again come out of our safe little cave, our safe little, place of being. I will never love again. I will never do this again, whatever. Which is an illusion, by the way, because life involves beginnings, middles, and endings, yes? It's going to happen anyway, sorry. We can pretend that it didn't affect us at all, just charge forward and bull our way through life. I don't care if this happened, I'm going to just go forward. This is the people who have a major tragedy on Friday and show up for work on Monday going, yeah, it didn't affect me, I'm ready to go. It's called denial. Or we can learn to surf the waves of life with flexibility and resilience. And this takes a shift in perspective from, why is this happening to me? Not you, but you've seen people do that, yes? Okay. Or what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with them, or what's wrong with the world? To instead a perspective of, what can I learn here? What can I strengthen here? In bicycle racing, we used to have a saying, train your weaknesses, race your strengths. Get better at what you're weak at, but approach the world and live from your strengths. And what that does is expand you as an individual. We can ask, how am I being called to grow and change? In her book, The 5 Practices of Highly Resilient People, Dr. Taryn Marie Stejskal recommends a different than normal approach to setbacks or sudden, unexpected shifts in life. And she suggests that instead of bouncing back, which is returning to normal, returning to the way things used to be, we instead bounce forward, learning new ways of living. We as a new thought community, that's what we are, by the way, in case you're not sure, recognize that it's our thinking which determines our experience of life, producing either greater freedom or greater constriction, depending on our use of thought. So we're not evolving into a greater relationship with spirit or a greater relationship with wholeness. We're evolving from a greater relationship with spirit, evolving from the wholeness that we already are. Although we determine the path of that evolution. Is it straight or is it very convoluted? Is it bumpy as you know what? Or is it nice and smooth? Is it fast? Is it slow? We determine the path, but the evolution from within, from that nature of spirit, is already happening. And we determine that through our thinking. Spirit is always evolving into ever greater expressions of its own nature, and its own nature is always for good. Yes? If you're not sure of that, think of it this way. If spirit was not evolving for its greater and greater good, it would be doing what? Devolving for its lesser and lesser good? And therefore it would cease to exist, and we wouldn't be here, and that would have probably happened a few billion years ago. Breathe. So spirit is always evolving for its greater and greater expression of good. Now, it already is the wholeness of good, but how it expresses that good, how it shows up as that good, is always growing, is always changing, is always shifting. We are not stuck in the way it used to be. Unless, of course, we try to make ourselves stuck in that. But I have news for you. The universe, the world, consciousness is expanding anyways. I have a friend. I have a friend. I do have a friend, really. I do. Melissa Felipe. Sorry, I got stuck on a Michelle, and I couldn't get Michelle out of my head. Melissa Felipe, who has a wonderful song, Kicking and Screaming Down the Path of Transformation. Yeah? And we've done that. You've done it. I've done it. We've all done it. Okay? Do we want to go with the movement of spirit for this greater evolution? In the book A New Design for a Living, Ernest Holmes and Willis Kinnear write, the starting point then for our experience of greater freedom, a greater good, is the emancipation of our own thought. Freeing up our own thinking from the stinking thinking, from the past habits that have held us back. This is why a time like this is a good time to look at and evaluate, where has my thinking taken me so far? Do I want to continue in that direction? In some cases, you'll say, yes, I do. In other cases, you might say, I think I might need to alter course here. So we emancipate our thought by learning to deal more effectively with life, particularly the 3 C's, which are challenge, change, and complexity. We all love those, right? It always amuses me in religious science communities where we have this motto that says, change your thinking, change your life, how people have difficulty dealing with change. I have minister friends who come into a new community and they start to make changes. They do away with the peace song that the community has been singing for 10 years, and immediately there's cries for firing the minister. Right? We're here to acknowledge that change is the reality, that what's happening anyways, whether we like it or not. How do we deal with it? The challenge is what helps us to grow. As a cyclist, I used to love to climb hills because they were a challenge, and I would grow stronger from that challenge. I wouldn't always make it up some of the biggest hills. Most of the time I would. But I'd feel challenged, and I would feel wonderful when I completed it. We have challenges. And then we have complexity. Life is becoming more and more complex. That's just the nature of life. It has been doing that for eons. We started off in a little big bang and have evolved stars, planets, solar systems, all this, galaxies, all this stuff, all sorts of beings on this particular planet that are ever and ever and ever more complex. That's what's happening. That's what's life. Do we flow with that? How do we deal with that? So Dr. Stasel suggests 5 practices that we can use, stretching exercises, if you will, to increase our resilience. And the first one is vulnerability, openness. This is the opposite of burying our head in the sands of denial or building walls of isolation. Instead, it's a practice that increases our authenticity and it increases our empathy. Can I be more open? Can I be more vulnerable? The second practice is what she calls productive perseverance, knowing when to stand firm and when to shift. In the Richard Rohr introduction today, the person who was writing it lives in Florida, and he was talking about a particular tree that in hurricanes, the branches break off, but the trunk stays solid. Can we let go of what we need to let go of? Can we shift what we need to shift? See, the people that were cutting the whale free in that story that Ocean read are a great example of productive perseverance. It took time. It took risk. It took a new way of interacting with the whale, and the whale a new way of interacting with humans. Productive perseverance. The third practice is greater connection. Connection to ourselves through self-honesty, connection to spirit and source, as source. So often, I know so many religious science ministers and practitioners who they're struggling with something in life, and all of a sudden they go, dang, I should have prayed about that. It's like, hello, you teach this. I teach this. We all forget. So connection with that source. And then connection to others by reaching out to both receive and give support. You know, the myth of the rugged individual, you know, the Lone Ranger, the John Wayne, who doesn't need anybody else, I'm a self-made man, has long ago been debunked. It does not exist. I'm sorry. We are interdependent beings living in community. Breathe. We need and we depend upon each other. The fourth practice is something Dr. Skaskol calls gratiosity. Yeah, sounds like one of Buffy's words, or Michael Beckwith's words. It's a term that blends gratitude and generosity. So no matter what our circumstances, we can find something to be grateful about. Yes? And the attitude of gratitude opens us and expands us to receive more. Likewise, no matter how little we believe we have, we can still be generous, because generosity is a consciousness, is an attitude. In the Hebrew Bible, there's the story of the widow who's left in debt, and when she's approached by a prophet named Elisha, she asking her what she has in her house. She says, well, I only have a little oil. Many of us get into this I only have consciousness. Not you guys, but you've seen people, right? Mm-hmm. So Elijah instructs her, of course, to go gather pots, all the pots she can find from all the neighbors, bring them in, fill them with the little bit of oil that she has, and of course, as the story goes, the oil doesn't run out until the last pot is full. And then she gets to go sell the pots of oil and pays off her debts. Which reminds us, it's a story that reminds us that we always have more than we think we do. And that we often need somebody else to help us to see that more. Whether it's a prophet or a practitioner. We have to become aware of that. And then the fifth practice is possibility. Possibility is how we navigate and handle change. You know, we talk about the unlimited nature of spirit, the principle, that principle isn't bound by precedent. It's one of Ernest's favorite sayings, one of my favorite sayings. And what that means is the infinite is always new. It is not bound by what it did before. You and I, being spirit in form, are not bound by what we did before. Unless we wrap ourselves up in the entangling web of our own thinking, in which case we sometimes need somebody to cut us out of it, yes? We are not bound by what we've done before. We are free. We are constantly and always free. So during this period that we label as 2023, today's the last day of it, into the period that we label as 2024, and remember it's just our label, yes? Honoring this moment, yet recognizing that any and every moment is a fresh beginning. One of my teachers early on used to say, today is the first day of the rest of your life, and today is the last day of the rest of your life. Live it that way. And so we stand on this cusp. We stand on this lip of the new year, as one of my favorite poets, Barbara Cooker, says. and create. What do we want to create with our thinking? What do we want to create as our new year? So it's a fresh beginning and a completion of the old. And so I invite us to live this way with a greater commitment to living out loud, to letting our lives not be small and kept in the dark, but living out loud. And to being open to Spirit living through and as us, and to being flexible and resilient as we enjoy this new beginning, recognizing our and life's wholeness. As we look forward to next year's theme, which is a grand rising. And so I invite us to contemplate, as we live out loud, we move into a grand rising in consciousness. So I want to close with a quote. This quote comes from Joyce Rupp from her book, Out of the Ordinary. And she says, "This new year, we can have some fun with the usual resolutions we make for living better. And we can go deeper. We can resolve to live with wholeness, to live free from attachment, to live wisely with humility, justly with compassion, lovingly with fidelity, and gratefully with generosity. We can hold this vision and renew it daily in our hearts." I invite you to do that. Our spiritual practice for this week is to set conscious, expansive intentions for 2024. Shameless plug. If you would like help in doing that, today is the last day to register for the Intentions Retreat, which starts next Friday night. And we will be practicing setting conscious, expansive intentions during that time. We have an affirmation to apply this. Say this with me. I am whole, and I live from and as that wholeness. I surf the waves of life with joy, freedom, and resilience. And let's say it one more time. I am whole, and I live from and as that wholeness. I surf the waves of life with joy, freedom, and resilience. And so it is.